Okay, welcome back to the kitchen. My name, if you've forgotten already, which I'm sure you have, is Chef Nick, or Professor Nick, or Hey Buddy. So the next video session we're going to do is how to make a very nice roasted loin of lamb. And to do that, we need to do a couple things to get ready. There's a term in cooking called mise en place. It's a French term. It's 3 words, M-I-S-E. Second word, E-N. Third word, P-L-A-C-E, mise en place. That means, roughly translated, everything in its place. Mise en place is extremely important if you're trying to cook, because if you're running around doing things as you're cooking, it'll be really, really hard to produce a quality product. So to do our mise en place for this particular dish, I've got some nice large lamb bones here. This is from the legs, the foreshin and the rear shank of the lamb. And then I've also got some fat and some bone here, which I can use as well. So this is a lamb rack, and the rack comes from the back part of the animal. This is similar to a beef tenderloin, okay? And all of the most tender, most sort of sought-after cuts of meat come from the back section of animals, 4-legged animals, I should say, because they're the most tender. So to clean this up, I want to do 2 things. First, I want to just remove a lot of this fat here. So I'm just going to run my knife, and you can look and see where the meat connects with the bone, okay? So I'm just going to run my knife right along that edge there, and that'll expose up my bones there. And using my boning knife, I'm just going to go underneath, and you can see this fat just comes off very, very easily, okay? I'm going to save that, and I'm going to roast it off. I'm also going to start to trim off some of this meat in between the bones here. So this would be called Frenching a lamb rack, or Frenching a bone. And it basically means just to remove all of the small particles of meat and fat that are connected to the bone, so that it's, for presentation, it looks much nicer. The other thing I want to do now is I'm just going to split this. So the bones run at a slanted angle like this. So I'm just going to take from the fat side here, and I'm just going to trim this off, okay? And then I'm going to trim this right off the bone. So we're going to basically do a loin and a chop, okay? Okay, so here you can see I've got my dark roasted bones. And what I want to do to this is very similar to our chicken stock. I'm going to add some aromatics, so some black peppercorns, some bay leaf. I've also got here some mirepoix, so I've got some onion, some carrot, some celery. I've got a little bit of rosemary and thyme. That's going to go in. And then I'm just going to cover this with water and bring it to the boil and cook this for about another 8 hours. So I'm going to get this cooking, and we'll be right back. Okay, so my lamb stock is cooking, and I want to cook this for a very, very long time. And eventually what I want to do is strain it and turn this into a sauce. So while that's cooking, I want to prepare the rest of the lamb to be finished off or cooked. So I've got my loin section here, and then I've also got an extra piece here with some bone on. So what I want to do with the loin is, you can see that there's this very shiny protective layer going over the top of the loin here. This is what we call silver skin. And this skin is a fibrous material that is surrounding most muscles. And what it does is it allows 2 muscles to glide over each other without connecting to each other, because protein inherently wants to connect itself to each other. That's how muscles build. So what this does is it protects each single muscle group from connecting to the other one. So we have them, every other animal has them. Unfortunately, it's not very pleasant to eat. So what I want to do is take this off. So now I've got a small piece of rack and a nice piece of loin. And that's ready to cook. So the other thing I need to do is start to prepare some side dishes. So we'll be right back with some different side dishes to go along with these. So now to finish our lamb, what I want to do is add a little bit of, again, just a nice neutral oil. I'm using grapeseed oil again into this pan here. And just on a medium to low heat, once it starts to heat up a little bit, I'm going to add my potato. And I want to start to let this cook a little bit. The other thing I want to do is start to season my lamb loin with a little bit of salt, okay? Okay, I've also got some red chili flakes here. And then I've got some rosemary, some thyme, and some garlic again. So we're going to do a similar technique as we did with an earlier video with the chicken, where we're going to baste it with fresh herbs. Okay? And I've got some butter there as well. So as my potato slowly starts to cook, I also want to add a little bit of vegetable oil to another pot here. Sorry, to another pan. And I want to start to sear off my lamb. And again, as I mentioned in earlier videos, when you're cooking meats or proteins or any kind of thing, if it's not ready to move as this potato is, that means that it's not ready to move. So you just let it cook gently, and eventually it'll move on its own. So I'm just going to season this potato a little bit. Very, very nice low heat. I'll put this on the back burner while I get my lamb ready. So into this hot pan, I'm going to put my lamb, okay? Both pieces, the loin and the chopped piece, okay? And then I've still got some asparagus here. I've got some red chili flakes, which I'm going to use to add to my lamb sauce later, which is going to give it just a nice little bit of spiciness. So again, if it's not ready to move, it'll come up. Don't try and force it. So just on a nice low heat here, we're just going to let this lamb cook very gently. All right, so I've got a nice simple plate here. I've got my potato fondant, I've got my asparagus, I've got my beautiful pieces of lamb, which I've just glazed with a little bit of Dijon mustard. I've got my lamb jus, or my lamb demi here, which, if you recall from the beginning of the video, is just made by roasting lamb bones and then making a simple stock, and then reducing that stock way down until we get a very dark, very rich lamb sauce here. So now that that's reduced down as much as I need it to, what I want to do is start to plate up the rest of my dish. But before I do that, I need to take a little bit of butter, and I just, again, want to add some butter to this at the very end, and that's just going to help finish the sauce, give it a very nice shine, and also give it a very nice finished texture. So I'm just going to bring this up to the boil really quickly. I'm going to take another piece of butter here, maybe a little bit more. And then off the heat, I'm going to swirl this butter in. And you can immediately smell the richness that that butter adds to the sauce, and the added thickness it brings to it, and the shine that it brings to it. And so just in a very nice swirling motion like this, just going to finish off this sauce. Once you've added the butter in this fashion, once you've added the butter to the sauce, you really don't want to put it back on the heat, because if you bring it up to a too high of a temperature, that will actually force the sauce to split. And we really don't want that. So again, I'm just going to just give a little taste here. Good. A little bit of salt. So I'm going to take a little bit of my sauce here. I'm just going to put that right into my plate here. And I'm just going to fill up the very bottom of this plate, just so I have a nice nice amount of sauce. The potato is just going to sit really nicely on the edge there. I'm going to take my pieces of asparagus. I'm going to line them up from the tips. Then I'm just going to trim the very bottom. And I'm just going to arrange those carefully on my plate. Then I'm going to take one of the small pieces of the lamb. Okay. And I'm just going to put that right on top. Now I'll take a nice piece of my lamb loin. Okay. And that's going to go just off the center there. And there you have a very nice, fairly simple but elegant roasted lamb loin and chop with asparagus, potato fondant, and a lamb red wine jus. I hope you enjoy.